All right, good evening, everyone. Today we have with us Srijaa Grover. She's a young author, 21-year-old, a lawyer in making, and it's really a pleasure to have her with us. She'll be talking about the right mindset, the thought process about book writing, publishing her first book at such an early age, also some of the insights that we as readers don't know about an author, right? How an author thinks and what is the real thought, how to get the gist of any of the book that we are reading, right? How to analyze a book, how to read a book the way it should be read, right? Something about reading, something about book writing, right? Those who are aspiring authors, it would be a great session for them, right? So it's really good. It's really a pleasure to have you, Srijaa.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So starting से करते हैं यार. Let's start with your school life. ठीक है. The first interaction that we all have with books is in school, right? The textbook that we read. Uh, I'll tell you my experience was the first books or that I read were Champak, right? The comic books that we used to read. So आपका भी कुछ ऐसा ही था when you started reading?
Yeah, so when I started reading, I always was fascinated by book covers. So I used to look for very contrasting ones, the colorful ones. Then I started glancing at the back covers, which included the description of the books. So just like you mentioned, you read Champak. So in my school life, we were given a prize of book while we were good at academics. So after every year, if we were good at academics and we got a good grade, we were eligible to get a book. So we could choose any book from the library out of the new lot and take it. So I always looked for the colorful one in the beginning, but as I grew up, I looked at the back covers because they gave a gist about the book. So it's very important to read the back cover, what are the key highlights of the book, and if that interests you. Like we look for movies on Amazon and Netflix, we always look at the description. So that is very important, that books also have a description. The way the description should be very important while you're writing it, so it should capture the mind and the hearts of people. So I was known to bedtime stories, and then I started reading novels at night to fall asleep, which was a really good habit of mine. But now that habit has changed as the technology advanced. Everyone switched to Kindle and everyone switched to their mobile phones, and there was digital transformation. So it led everyone to read the books online, and basically we just lost the touch of books and to feel its beauty. So, and it's very important. Like books also have a rare smell. Like we know the smell of rain. So the books also have their different scent. So basically, we just lost that as we advance in the technology, and as the world paced towards the information explosion, the effective communication became a need for all. And for the poets, the that kind of expression is in the form of art. So that's how I realized that language is very powerful.
Right. So, what was the first book that you read? The book that you remember that actually, you can say, that actually inspired you to write your own book or write your own poems, right? Any such book that you remember out of the hundreds that you might have read?
So basically, my favorite childhood book, like everyone in the teenage, it was The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So it was a fiction book series which talks about a middle schooler who illustrates his daily life in a diary. So, so basically, this gives a key highlight to the fact that you should always keep a note of your day. Like we make to-do lists. So at bedtime, you should always write what you should do the next day. So this keeps you organized, keeps track of your time. The same way, you should always do what you're grateful for at the end of the day. So you're grateful that you woke up, you're grateful that you got a good meal. You're grateful that you could write even a few words of poetry in a day. So that are the milestones you should be very happy about every day. So I used to read that book. I follow that after a book reading. As I mentioned that technology advanced, I used to watch button poetry videos on YouTube. So you can just search button poetry videos, anyone out of the audience, you can search that, and it will really help you because you'll understand there's a difference about spoken poetry and written poetry. So button poetry gives you a process, a flow. So my favorite one was When Love Arrives by Sarah K and Phil K. So it was a very beautiful poetry. So what is very important in spoken poetry is that you give a pause after a line, and that pause should kind of match with the next one. So herein they mention, so when love arrives. So there is expression. So there is art, which is very evident. And currently I was reading Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to Happiness and The Secret. So these are very famous books and these are really good ones. So everyone should have a read.
Right. So these are the books you give credit to, like for beginning your journey to be an author, right?
Yes.
So any of the podcasts that you listen to, because as you said, that digital penetration is now more and more in India, especially after Geo came in, right? So any of the podcasts that help you, you can say with the right mindset, getting that right mindset or the insights about how to publish your own book, because writing a book, anyone and everyone can write their own books, right? But the challenge where comes in, for whom you are writing the book, getting that audience who may or may not love your book, right? Then publishing your own book is a different, altogether a different challenge for them.
Hmm.
Be it the the documentation, be it the manuscripts, taking the ISBN number, etc., etc., etc. Right? The list goes on. So when you started your book, so when in which year did you start writing your own book?
I started writing my own book in 2021 itself. So basically, the poetry was kind of my way of expression. So I used to write a few words. I'll start with my process of thinking. So I started with a few words and few lines, and I wrote some poetry and gave a title to them. So the thought came to me that I need to compile these poetry and they should be of a similar type. So my poetry book revolves around myself and how we should have self-worth and how we should look for the key to happiness and how we should focus on self-development. So I revolved around those aspects. So there are various titles to that. So I compiled that and I came across a publishing and I thought I need to compile my book of poetry. So I kind of worked on it through 2021 end, December, January. And then by January I was able to do it. I gave it to the publishing for the editing process. They assigned me a publishing consultant for the same, and they read my poems and they suggested few changes, and they asked me if I could if I want to design my book cover myself, or they should suggest me something. So I told them I already designed my book cover. I designed my book cover in 2 days because I'll explain you the title. So it's Pearls of Simplicity. I was very happy when I got to know that I have finalized my title. So, as the title suggests, pearls of simplicity. Pearls are very simple. So, they signify simplicity, and there is no end to the wants and desires, but simplicity has its own charm. So, pearl is very lightweight, and glamour and grandeur have their own weight like any ornament. But pearl is very simple. So, if we consider the complexities of life and we assume that as a thread of life, so the book is an endeavor of gratitude and how we should be happy for the little things and how we should take life and how we should love ourselves. So my book Pearls of Simplicity gives a glimpse of how a series of soulful alphabets poured from the heart are weaved into poetic verses. So my book cover shows a lady who is wearing the pearls and is very simple and elegant. She does not have makeup on, but she's very pretty naturally and she's wearing the pearls. So they signify that but she also has some wrinkles, she also has some face marks which are very visible. But she's very simple yet beautiful and she is passing through life very happily and facing the complexities.
It was just, I would say, not only your journey, it's basically, you can say, every girl's or every woman's journey, right? They face a lot more complexities than men, I would say, right? That's my personal opinion here. But all in all, right, even I read your book, so it more talks about self-help, right? The more you go into the depth of the lines, of course you are the author, you know more of the thoughts behind what you have written there, but
No, every person has their own perception of what they read. So this is the magic in poetry. So if I read it, I might come into different conclusions what it means, but
right,
every person have their different perspective. So you might understand it very differently.
right. So I remember this, the interpretation of a poem, right? Or maybe you can say reading between the lines, reading the
Yes.
unsaid words. So I remember, we used to make a lot of a lot fun of these poems. I remember, I don't remember the name of the author, but in one of the poems, help me with it. In one of the poems, there was a description of the blue curtains. I think it was Robert Frost or someone around that. One of the poems that we read in our class 10th, 11th, 12th somewhere, there was a description or a mention of uh, the blue curtains in a room, right? So what we interpreted of is the sad thoughts of the in the author's mind, right? But ultimately one of the memes came that okay, we are interpreting this, but the author actually meant the curtains were fucking blue, right? So these things we might take it a bit simple, right? Okay, the author has written the curtains were blue and something something something. We interpreted that okay, blue is something related to this can lead to some sad or some feeling of disgrace or something like that. So
Yes,
is it what
we
you
read
are
that in
referring to?
ninth standard. It was the author was Rudyard Kipling, and yes, every person, like in my class too, in my school, every person had different interpretation, because as we know, blue is my favorite color, but sometimes blue signifies sadness or a feeling of a gloomy way. But actually, for me, blue is very positive. So as per the world, blue will be a gloomy thing. For me, blue defines happiness. And as per the author, he just wanted to say that they were blue curtains or signify something else. So there can be different interpretations, true. But yes, we need to read between the lines, and that is why our teachers used to make us read every word of the poem and help us identify various metaphors, similes, and help us understand that as in way they wanted us to.
Right.
But yes, every mind is very creative. They can have their own interpretation.
Uh, now, now that we have talked about teachers, right? So I'll take you back to your school, right? Being in class 8 to 12th, I would say, that's where the actual poems, actual stories or novels we used to read, right? Just because they were in our syllabus. I still remember reading Anne Frank in class 9th or 10th, I guess, right? I
Was in
guess
11th.
Anne Frank was in 10th, right?
Okay.
So somewhere we gave our board exams, giving the summary. I don't know which book it was,
Yes, yes, yes.
right? So so that's how we began reading, right? Reading novels or reading poems. So did your, and we generally don't take English as serious as other subjects, right? I'll tell you about myself. We generally used to skip our English classes, right?
I loved
Maybe
my English class.
okay, so now we are getting why you became an author at such an early age. So we generally it's a general tendency of not taking English as a subject seriously, right? So it was just that people should learn how to converse in English, right? How to talk in English,
But
but
it's
we
very important. It's very important.
and
Our mode
that
of communication is English. We should always work on our communication skills. And
so
if we don't learn grammar, we don't have perfect communication skills.
I'm just talking about interpretation of stories, poems, and novels. So, did your teachers, did you give any credits to your teachers who might have helped you maybe getting the right mindset that we talk about? Right? Anyone can read, read a book. They can interpret different things, but writing a book is altogether a different game. Be it poems, be it novels, be it short stories, even Champak, right? That we used to read comics, books, some novels, Harry Potter that we all are crazy fan of Harry Potter,
Yeah.
right? So, did your teachers during school, what was the contribution of your teachers till now? Maybe your teachers, professors, everyone.
Yes, so I'm very grateful to my teachers and I'm very happy that they always used to teach us. So it was not just the classroom learning. In my school, we had our annual day, our cultural mornings, and various other extracurriculars and book weeks too, which helps us connect more to the books and helped us ideate, and we had various competitions for the same. So I used to participate in various debate competitions and Model United Nations, which helped me improve my research skills. So, as in literature is very important. We also had some literary fest in which some authors used to come and we used to buy books. So there was a book stall, like for example, we have Oxford bookstore, so they help us connect to them. So, as I was talking about the language, so poetry is not bound to any language. We can write it in any language as it flows from our heart. But it is very important that we do our research well. So, for example, I want to write a poetry on myself. For example, I want to write a poetry on myself. So I need to do a research that how is my day going, what area I'm working on. So research is very important. As I mentioned, poetry flows from the heart, but reading, researching is all in very important. So we had our class library and school library. So in my free periods, I used to go to the library, sometimes look for my books of related to my subjects in 11th and 12th grade, or sometimes I used to go to the novel area. So I used to randomly pick a book and start reading. And I used to figure out some words and write around 5 to 10 words from there and improve my vocabulary. So if I found a word in Hindi or in English, for example, in Urdu, I found a word and I found it very beautiful. So I kind of write it at the back of my diary and sometimes use it in my poetry. So that is how the ideation process starts. You find words, you need them into sentences, and you need the sentences into verses and the verses into a complete poem, and that is how you complete a poetry. An incomplete verse is also a poetry that can also be fitted somewhere else. But every unfinished piece of work is very important, and a finished piece of work is finally a masterpiece. So that is how you make a masterpiece from the bits and pieces.
Okay. So, so what did you do? What about the teachers? You talked about you went to the library, and your teachers helped you. So, in what way did they help you getting that mindset? Getting into a library is a different interest that someone might have, someone might not have, right? But for someone, let's say, who's an aspiring author, right? But he's just developing that habit of reading. Just like you said, you used to read regularly, right? Without any break. You had a routine of reading novels during the bedtime, right? So let's say there's a kid who is just now started developing that routine. So how come being a mentor, right? As a mentor, what would you suggest to him if he ultimately wants to be an author?
Okay, so every child is different. If he has just started reading, I would tell him to find his own way, to find his own motivation. So if he does not like reading, if he likes to be with the nature, so when he is going out, sitting on the terrace with his family or even alone, he should look at the sky. So for example, my inspiration for the day will be the sun. So I will look at the sun, get inspired, and if I look for some words like shining bright, beautiful, it is metaphorically similar. Shining bright will be equal to the good times in life, and the dark, and we don't look at the darkness, and there is motivation in nature. So if we look at that aspect, so herein the that person will get ideas, and eventually if he wants to formulate those into sentences, he needs to find some samples or somewhere he should read, so that will inspire him to read something and finally make some short sentences or short compilation of a verse. I myself have written so many poetries and thrown the paper and deleted my poetry because I didn't find it's very worth it. But after some time, that poetry is finally finished and it's finally compiled in a form of a book. So that is how a child can go. And mentors take you beyond classrooms to an imaginative world. So, for example, if a kid is interested in fiction, if he likes to watch anime, if he likes to watch any serial for that matter, if he likes to watch Netflix or Amazon Prime, so any fiction he is interested in, his mind will go there and he can create a story of his own. For example, he likes Marvel, so he can create a story like that. So the mind goes where it goes, and your imagination takes you to a different world. So there is no limit to poetry. Your imagination can come from anywhere, but very important is when you find that idea, that ideation to be formulated into words is very important. So for that you need to read and research, and our teachers also provide us with some resources. So they used to guide us for competitions and send us here. So like in our college too, we also get opportunities like debate competitions. We have societies, and for that we have like I'm becoming a lawyer, so we also have societies which are committed to arbitration, which are committed to moot courts, which give us the real life experience. So our mentors always provide us with the resources for that. And like the English department also has a literary fest, like VSES has some literary fest. So they also provide us with opportunities for the same, for competition. So our mentors and our seniors and our teachers always provide with the resources. It's in our hands to make the best use of the resources available.
Right. So you just now talked about you are pursuing law, right? You are pursuing BA LLB, right?
I'm pursuing BBA LLB.
BBA LLB. So that's even more drastic. So 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 how do you manage your passion for writing books or maybe reading books along with your college stuff? I would say the academics, because being a lawyer in itself is a tedious task. As far as I know, as far as I am a corporate law student, you need to go in depth in every in each and every line. It could be a bare act, it could be any
True.
of the it could be any of the book, right? Nevertheless, so how did you manage your passion for book reading, or in fact writing your own book during especially during that academic race that you have?
Okay, so personally, for that, I have my page. It's called Music Poetry Academia, in which I post music covers and post academia. So, academia is also linked to poetry. So, I used to read academia. So, academia is basically literature which it has some words. So, I get inspired from those words. So, I'll tell you how poetry helps me join the dots with my career. Career is very important, but your passion always comes with your career. It helps you refresh, it helps you cool down, it helps you de-stress. So your passion will always help you and not take much of your time. So you can always take out time for your passion even while you're pursuing your career. So being a law student, I read bare acts. So in the bare acts, we also have to stop at every word and understand their meaning. So poetry always taught me that I need to find the meaning behind it. But in bare acts, we need to understand the meaning, understand the case studies, and then understand its practicality. So poetry helped me here too.
Uh, that's it, I guess. Also, adding to this, I would like to know more about. uh, let's say you have your exams, right? Even if, okay, let me frame it once again. You talked about managing your academics, right? Along with your passion for writing books, writing poems. So, are you in process of writing another book right now?
Yes, I have some unfinished poetry which I'm going to compile soon. So, yes, it's a difficult part of the artistic process that sometimes ideas are there, sometimes ideas are not there. But there are some unfinished poetry which I'm soon going to compile and publish when it's ready at my own pace.
Hmm. Okay, so you just now said just a few minutes back that you used to write some poetry, some lines, some words. Then you feel like okay, let's not, you know, it's not like a finished piece. Then you used to just tear off that paper, throw it away, right? And you also said that unfinished poetries, right? When they are completed, when they are fully, compiled, it becomes a masterpiece. And
Yes.
even unfinished ones are worth publishing as well, right? It's also
Yes.
a poem. So
Yes.
say like you actually lost a few masterpieces there. You lost
Uh,
some of the masterpieces of your own.
no, I still have those. So now, as we digitalized, I write on my notes app. So I still have some headers and my poetry pieces. So when that idea comes in my mind, I just leave it there and then I combine them. So that masterpiece will be used for another book. So it's not wasted. Nothing is wasted in my life.
About
So
I'm just talking about the time that when you used to write it on a paper, then you just tear it off, crumble it, and throw it away in the dustbin.
yes.
Right? I'm talking about those days. Maybe it could be during your starting days, college days, school days. So, at that, remembering that time, do you feel that you have thrown away a lot of masterpieces there? A lot of verses that could be compiled now, and now you have, been so mature, a bit of mature in writing poetry. Do you think those verses that you have written there could be a masterpiece now? Could have been a masterpiece now?
No, I don't regret my decision of tearing them because if I tear the piece, I always have those words jotted down somewhere because they in digitally or in some other paper. So it's not a waste because the ideation process is still going on. After 2, 3 pages you've torn, the fifth page or the sixth page will be the final one. So that process is not lost. I don't regret that. That throwing is kind of okay, rejected, 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 accepted.
Okay.
I
So,
am a perfectionist, so I don't really get really happy with myself until it's finally done and it's finally perfect. So I look for more words. So I tend to increase my vocabulary. Like I told you, I find words and then I search them. So Google is my best friend here. Technology has really helped me. I also, apart from this, I also am good at writing. I have contributed in a fashion law book in my domain of law, and it has been published and available all over the world, and it is available on Amazon and Flipkart and various other platforms. So it is one of India's first fashion law books, which contains content for the people who are wanting to pursue fashion law.
fashion law. Like, so tell us something more about fashion law. It's a unique term. Like I have never heard of it before. So what according to you is fashion law? Or if someone who is more curious about making a career there, maybe there are people who have heard about fashion law before. They want to get into that particular domain, right? So tell us more about what exactly fashion law is.
Yes, so basically there are various domains which are upcoming here, like space law, fashion law. So fashion law basically talks about the people who are in the fashion, not only the people who are the fashion divas, the models, but it also talks about the people clicking the pictures of the model, the people helping the models, the makeup artists, and others. So they also have rights, but India is lagging behind. It is coming forward to make its own laws, but we don't have exact laws. Like we have the Copyright Act. The Copyright Act kind of binds them. For example, as per the Copyright Act and the Intellectual Property act, we have that the photographer who is clicking the picture of the models. So if he has been told to click the 100 pictures, so he will have that guarantee that those 100 pictures are copyrighted. So if he is on the 112th picture, that picture will not be copyrighted. And we have seen that when you click pictures, there are some critics in the society too. So that there are some people who are clicking sky pictures. Like I'm a sky lover, I click sky pictures, and sometimes someone clicks pictures in the public. So if someone is clicking someone else's pictures, they could be sued for that because they don't have the right to click other person's pictures. So that is how the right binds them. So a fashion model could straight away come at the 112th picture that this was not in the agreement. This was not bound by you to be clicked, and this was not bound by you to be shared because we had a contract of clicking only 100 pictures. So that is how fashion law is very important, and it is a very upcoming field because those people's right also need to be protected. Like the fashion brand owners, if they have any infringement, so we have those IPR laws, but exact fashion laws need to be developed, and that is how they need to be provided a binding for the same and provided because they live and they have the freedom to express and freedom to be protected of.
Okay, so okay, it's a lot more. It's a lot of information, I would say. So coming back to you, Srijaa, you are a 20-year-old author. You are a lawyer in making. You have interest in fashion law for obvious reasons because you're a law student. You know about fashion law. What else you do? You are a singer as well. So,
Yes.
so how come as a student, like starting from school, because these things, I am including, you know, your poetry skills, your writing skills, your singing, your interest for law, these all things develop in school, right? And they get more mature in the college phase, right? So, how come did you manage all of these things? You know, these things building up in school and then managing all of them during your college. So, how did
As
that
I
happen?
told you, I am a perfectionist, so I try to maintain regularity and time management. So, as in when I'm providing effort for my academics, I always loved and pushed myself for extracurriculars because extracurriculars is what makes you. So, I always love public speaking. So, I have moderated various sessions, I have judged various. I have been a judge and the chairperson in various Model United Nations. So I have also trained students for that. So that was in my school time, and after that, like in my first year of college, I did that too. But now I am more into some debate competitions, like in our law field, we have moot courts. So I am more in the organizing. So and like I recently helped students in the moderation committee to how to moderate a session. So basically, there are arbitrators. So if there are arbitrators coming from various law schools. So how do you have to moderate that session? How do you have to talk with them, helping them develop various communication skills? So that is how I learned from my school time to my college time. That is how I developed my communication skills. So this has been my main forte. And apart from the spoken expression, I also have written expression in form of poetries. I have also various articles published under my name in various in corporate law, in fashion law, in other
Okay.
fields of law too, in general,
I'll
other.
interrupt you
Yes,
here.
yes.
I'll interrupt you here. My question was, how were you able to manage all of your interests during your school and college time?
Like I already mentioned that I was regular and I had time management, so I tried to
How
manage them.
come did that happen? Because, of course, in class 11th and 12th, there is, you know, I would say a more focused, you need a more focused approach over academics. And there's also pressure for, you know, from parents, from peers, from children, right?
My
So,
parents were very cool with me, and I was the one who always took the stress for exams. So they were always chill and they tried to motivate me and always tried to cool me down and make me less stressful. So as I
let's
mentioned, that that
assume,
my academics took a lot of my time in 11th and 12th, but as a stress buster, singing and writing always helped me out. So if I was taking a break while solving the mathematics sums, singing music and writing poetry, it always helped me. So it's always a stress buster. Your passion should never come in your way of career. It always goes with your career, because if you love something in your career, you always love something as a passion. Like there are many doctors, there are many engineers, very famous people who always love either they love singing, either they love writing, either they love playing a sport. So you always have other interests.
Right. You're absolutely right. I think if we look at even the Bollywood actors, right, I would say a majority of them are engineers. And by the time, I got to know about this fact a few years ago only, right? A majority of actors, including Sushant Singh Rajput, right? There is Tapsi Pannu is also there. She's also an engineer, right? Even if we go to different fields,
There are
right?
very entrepreneurs. Like even you can look at Katrina Kaif. She's already part of the film industry. She's a very famous actress. She's still doing films.
Right.
Apart from that, she also has her own fashion brand called Cake.
Right.
So she's also an entrepreneur. She's also handling that. So that is how she manages her time out of that, and tries to maintain, because she wanted to become an actor, but for her fashion also came in the fashion. So she wanted to create her own product. So that is how she's managing that too. You can also uh, have a look at Virat Kohli. He's a very famous cricketer. He also has a restaurant of his own, which is in Delhi. So it is
Absolutely.
loved by a lot of youngsters these days. So yes,
Right.
it's very important to have a career and also pursue your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming to that, let's say the most, I would say the most stressful time is our class 12th. Like in a student's life, it's class 12th, right? So assuming the fact that your parents are the top 1% parents who are chill about their child, right? So, how was your schedule during your class 12, managing all your extracurriculars and your academics? And how has that evolved when you entered college?
Okay, so in my grade 12, I had commerce with mathematics and German. So I also had interest in German too. So
Right,
so I tried to make my 24-hour time a 48-hour time.
right,
When I used to travel to school, I used to utilize that time to revise for my academics. But while I was coming back, I used to listen to music and try to chill so that I could come back. After that, I used to have some classes for my academics, and then I took out some time for my family. And after that, I used to give some space for my extracurriculars too. Like I was a school prefect and I was the music coordinator, so I had to devote some time to music too. Like managing events, helping students out for registering for various events, guiding them for various competitions, going for the competitions myself, and missing various academics too. So, like I used to, while going for the competitions while we were going for the competition, I used to rehearse for that. While coming back, I used to study. So I used to make that, like I mentioned, I used to make my 24 hours, 48 hours, and I used to create a balance between them, and I used to make a schedule for that too. So sometimes I had to drink my coffee and study, because 9 to 10 I wanted to write something and clear my mind out. So I used to take out time for, and also I had my PT periods and other periods. So in that I used to go and study German. So my free periods were also used for that. So I am very good at multitasking, opening various channels while studying.
okay.
Yes.
So how has that evolved during college?
So as I came in college, there was the COVID-19 pandemic. So we had online classes,
Absolutely.
and my mode shifted. So I used to multitask. I used to participate a lot, and then I used to manage my academics. And as we grew up, and I'm currently in my third year now. Yes, academics also give a lot of pressure these days, but I always try to maintain a balance between that and give out some time for my internships, for my passion like writing and singing.
Okay, so
And I ended up scoring well while managing both.
okay. So how much did you score in your class 12?
How much did I score in my class 12? So, uh, I am talking about college and I'm talking about school. So, there is something that you always expect from yourself. So, as I told you, I'm a perfectionist. I will always not be very happy with my score, but it is a good score. So you should not always look at the numbers. You should look at the effort you've put in and how much
Clever,
how much it took.
clever.
How much
Very,
it took your time and how much it helped you evolve. So it's never a
very
waste.
very cleverly you dodged my question. Okay, if you don't want
Marks
to
are
tell
not
it,
important these days. Our
it's
skills are very important. So what are the skills we learned?
so if you
I
don't
am
want
also
to, it's
scoring
fine.
well. I'm not saying I don't score well, but when I have children, I'll tell my children to to tell them the marks they score, but also the skills they learned with that because the skills are very in and they'll only help you get in the job world. So you should look
Okay.
at your skills too.
All right. So basically, what you're saying is, right now, if anyone wants to be an author, he just should have a love for reading, right? So, if we look at young authors like you, and if we look at established authors, or poets for that matter, if we look at Robert Frost, right? If we look at, for example, if we go to the novel section, we look at Ruskin Bond, we look at J.K. Rowling, right? So we also see a very distinct styles of writing, right? Or maybe you can say the use of words, right? The way the sentence is formed, the sentence formation is very different, right? There are some similarities, but practically comparing young authors to the established ones, there is a more use of jargons, right? There would be many words in a 300-page novel written by maybe Ruskin Bond or J.K. Rowling compared to a novel written by an author who is in his late 20s, early 20s, mid 30s, right? So, do you think that comes with maturity, or being simple is a more difficult task? Because ultimately you are conveying your thoughts, right? So if your jargons, do you feel, first of all, do you feel your jargons are a barrier to your thought communication? Because jargon से बंदा समझ नहीं पाता, right? The reader might not understand the crux of that sentence, right? The thought
I
behind it.
personally don't use uh, jargons in my poetry.
Okay.
So I'm not aware of that. But
That,
yes, many poets do use that. And as we compare the young authors' poetry to the old authors, we always have a different process. As the generations change, your thinking process also changes, your creative process also changes. Nobody touches a very big book. So as you know, my book is very sleek and very easy for the young people to read because nobody would read a 200-page book now. They as we have digitalized or 200 or 500-page poetry book especially, they will not read that. They will always love a short and crisp poetry book which could be read very easily. So as the times have changed, we have also uh, amended our creative process. And as you talked about jargons, I personally don't mention jargons. I'm very particular about the words I use. And personally, I'm a grammar Nazi. It can be a positive thing or a negative thing. Positive thing in a way that I am particular about the words I use. I always try to improve my vocabulary and try to make the sentence or my words perfect. But there are also negatives, as you can say. I sometimes tend to correct people. I sometimes tend to correct myself. So that is how being a grammar Nazi and being a perfectionist has many pros and cons. But
right.
as you can say that we are the young authors and we will be heading this generation forward, there needs to be a connect. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is trying to touch the areas which everybody can feel in their day-to-day lives and make a connect with the audience. So connect with as you mentioned in the start that you should always know what is the end result, what is the audience you want to reach to. So if I want to reach the youth, I need to connect with them. I need to understand what they go through in their day-to-day lives and what they need to work on. So if I am a young adult, I can see that these youngsters will go through that similar exploration process, that similar way they need to learn to love themselves, they need to learn to respect yourself, they need to learn to face their life and they need to learn to be happy with it. So that is how the artistic process has changed through years and how you can always see that in people that how their mindset has also changed. So that is how the creative process also changes through life.
I absolutely agree with you. Also, adding more to this, do you think with time, as the time evolves, as the reading habits of people evolve, I have seen around me that it's not very much old. Around I think 5 6 years back, there was a culture in every home in my neighborhood at least. Everyone used to read newspapers, right? With the morning, with the morning tea around 6 7 a.m. Everyone used to be like sitting, outside their homes, maybe in their balconies, right? They used to read newspapers. There was a habit of reading, even if you look at our parents. But now, as the time is evolving, podcasts are coming up, digital newspapers are coming up, right? There are audiobooks coming up. So, do you think that that area of reading or that market of reading is somewhere fading away, right? Earlier, people used to read newspapers. There was a habit of reading.
Yes, it's
There was a
fading away,
habit
but
of
for the people like the grandparents who still have that habit that without reading the newspaper, their day won't start, it is the same. But for the youngsters, as I mentioned, their life has changed. I have
right,
in shorts on my phone and I always read the short snippets which come in the day. I don't go through the newspaper, but one should always suggest someone reading the editorial page because it always helps you improve your grammar and the communication skills. You should always know how you should do the report writing. Like if an incident happened day before yesterday, I should know how the person is writing it and how the person's viewpoint is being explored on the editorial page. So this has been replaced by the e-newspapers. We can subscribe to the Times of India, the Hindustan Times.
right, right. So, as you mentioned about report writing, that hit me the time when we used to write reports and articles for our exams, right? So, do you think that actually helped you somewhere, when you started off writing, or maybe started off writing your first book, that was published? So, do you think that that knowledge that you acquired there, those writing skills, helped you here?
Yes, the report writing skills always obviously they help someone because they help you form a structure in your sentence. So if you know how to form a structure in your sentence, you'll know how you should connect the two sentences. So obviously it helped me.
Right. And now that reports are being digitalized, right? We see Economic Times more focusing upon their digital presence. We see Times of India, The Hindu, etc., etc. Audiobooks coming up, right? People are fan of audiobooks. There are many podcasts like the one that we are recording. It will soon replace books. Do you feel that in the coming, in the coming decade, I would say, by let's say 2030, 2040, right? We are talking about decade or a couple of decades from now. Do you think?
Maybe, maybe not. For some people, it might replace, for some people, it might not. Because for some people who like the scent of the books, who like reading books in the physical form, they will read that way, like bedtime stories. But for some people who are in the full digitalized way, uh, they will read the books online only. So, yes, by 2030, the times may change, but some people will read physical books still if they really love them.
Right. So, according to your experience, because I personally feel that reading books is a different level of experience. Right? Even I read books till now. It could be because I have that habit of reading. I used to read my textbooks line by line since the beginning, right? So maybe because of that, I still have that habit, still have that tendency that if you ask me, even if you ask me to read a 17-page, 20-page document, right? I would simply ask you to give me a hard copy of the same, right? Because I'm not very fond of reading from my mobile screen or from my laptop screen. So, having said that, do you still feel that books are irreplaceable even after that digital revolution is being there, or the audiobooks would be replacing them soon?
The books in, for example, the books in the PDF forms are very useful these days. I
About
read.
books, talking about a basic habit of reading that people have,
Hmm.
right? The people, some people like me who don't prefer even reading through your through screens, like people like me who prefer books, if, be it your textbook, be it your subject notes, or be it a fictional book, any kind of a novel for that matter. So people like me, do you feel there is certain decline in the way people read, right? Just
Yes.
because of audiobooks, or just because of content, virally available everywhere?
Yes, there is a decline in that. And And as there is information explosion, we have the World Wide Web. I refer to the World Wide Web as the World Wisdom Web. So,
Okay.
so yes, it has the times have changed, and yes, sometimes as I mentioned, it will replace it. But for some people, the love for reading the books will still remain.
Hmm. So, just to conclude here, uh, what would be your top five advices for, give us five advices for a person, for a student for that matter, who is um, maybe a 15 to 20-year old, right? 15, 20-year old person who is an aspiring author, right? Uh, but he also wants to choose a career path that is way different from English literature, just like you did. You chose law as your career, right? What would be your top five advice for that person?
Okay, so firstly, I like to start off by saying that you're not too young to start with your artistic process of writing a book. You can be in your 20s, you can be in your 30s, or you can be very old. There is not a particular age. So, as in when your mind starts working towards the artistic process, you can start off, and you're never too young. You're never too young to learn or explore the world. It's your world, and you can always explore yourself. You can discover what you can do the best. I am discovering too. So for a person who wants to pursue something else and as a passion they want to become a writer, you should always do your passion in your free time or make some time out of your career for it because that will always help you. So you should always maintain regularity and have time management. So make a regular schedule for make I always I have a Chrome extension on which I put my quotes and to-do list. I also have a physical notepad for the same. I have my diary. I make my diary every day. So I write the tasks I have to do and two, three things I have to do for myself. So if I have to complete my assignment, if I have to complete some internship work, if I have to complete something which is relating to my career, then I also make note that I need to complete my unfinished poetry, that I need to watch this movie, uh, I need to do something, I need to make some good food for myself. So I need to take out time. So the time management is very, very important. So, secondly, it's very crucial and important that you should build your language. So, as I mentioned earlier, you should do your research well. You should read. So, the more you read, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you formulate the words and the words into sentences, the sentences into verses, and the verses into a full-fledged poem. So the second part is very important. Thirdly, you should create a balance. So as I mentioned, the time management aspect should create a balance, like understand what you want to do and understand how that passion will help you. Like I told you that my writing always helps me be very curious to know more. Like we have the bare acts, I need to understand the meaning behind it. So I look at the illustration. So it made me curious. It should always help you. Like you should have a connecting dot, so that it will be your motivation to come back to your passion. So if someone has a passion for dancing, what does dancing teach you? So when you dance, you understand that you need to be peaceful, you need to be calm, you need to understand, you need to enjoy it. So if that thing helps you in your career, then there's nothing like it. So fourthly, you should always pursue your passion. So don't. So if you're becoming a lawyer, if you're becoming a doctor, uh, if you're becoming a consultant, if you're becoming anything, you should never leave your passion behind, because your passion will always help you. So you'll always have a regret that you didn't pursue it. So you should always keep a balance, keep a regularity, and try to keep that in loop. Sometimes we always forget that, oh, we love this, we should come back to it. So you should not leave it behind, because that will always help you in some way or the other, because you need something for your recreation, for your happiness. Lastly, I would like to say uh, the mantra, that is read, read, read. It is very important to gain vocabulary. And so I mentioned that I have an extension in which I read new quotes. So that quotes always help me gain new vocabulary and motivate me throughout the day and uplift my mood to tick off my checklist. So the more ticks I have on my checklist, the more happiness it gives me. So yes, that is where it helps me remain focused. And that does not mean I don't procrastinate. I always procrastinate. Obviously, rest days are very important, but you should embrace your creative side and love yourself. That's all I want to say as a message to convey for the youngsters.
Right. So, just adding to that, and some more questions. That is, what were the challenges they might face, and what were the challenges that you faced when you wrote and published your first book?
Okay.
Five challenges. Name 5 challenges.
Okay.
What
I'd like
they
to
might.
mention some that, firstly, in a creative process, sometimes you don't have ideas. So that is a difficult part. You get demotivated. So I've always felt that imagination, creativity, and expression are the real souls of the human mind. So the curious mind is an explorer, which leads to imagination. So the thought process is very important. You need to have a frame of mind to write something. So the platform can be in way of speaking or writing. So like I have music, poetry, and academia. So abstract thinking is very important. So you should have that, and you should understand that I sometimes procrastinate, as I mentioned earlier. So, but I try to, if I am not doing it this week, I'll try to do that next week. And sometimes, obviously, as I mentioned, that procrastination is there. Sometimes there will be mismanagement of time due to any academic pressure, or sometimes you need to prioritize something. So these are the difficult things you will face, but sometimes you need to focus on the more important things, and by next week you can come back to it. So just don't leave it, you can come back to it. And lastly, I would like to talk about the publishing. So publishing journey is very crucial and important. So firstly, you have to frame your mind if you want to publish it. If you're confident enough that you want to publish your piece. So I was very happy when I got to know about my publishing, that is Bookleaf Publishing. So I wrote to them and I applied for that. So they selected my piece of poetry, and as I mentioned, they provided me with a publishing consultant, which helped me with the process. So it took time. It is a very time-consuming process. You're not sure whether they are working on your poetry or if it's just being left behind. But the wait is worth it. So You need to be patient. Sometimes you should not get very demotivated. I sometimes get demotivated, but 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 sometimes I get very motivated. So there you need to maintain a balance. Sometimes you're motivated, sometimes you're demotivated, but at the end of the day, you'll get results. If you have a passion, if you're working for something, uh, don't be disheartened. Work on it, and you'll get it. There's nothing stopping you. And be consistent in your efforts. That is all I would like to say.
That was really interesting, I would say. Like your whole journey, starting from school, being into different activities, being fairly good at academics, right, and managing all of them till now, right? You have been successfully managing all of it. But last one more question that I'm curious about. That would be the last one. You believe me? Any sneak peek into your upcoming book? Anything that you would like to share for your upcoming book?
Okay, so I was trying to write a storybook,
Okay.
which is very different from my domain. I love writing poetry. So I was trying if I could connect the words I found through poetry of my unfinished poetry and create them in a storybook. So so that everyone likes to read a storybook. I'll try a short storybook. So which talks how we weave the thread of our life. So you'll get to know soon. Stay tuned
All right.
for
So
more poetry book or
that's
more story.
really that was really an interesting session, I must say. Full of very interesting insights about about student life, managing different interests, different hobbies, being good at academics, right? Also, all in all, I would say, I think we all, never mind, like, nevertheless, we are, of what age are we all are, right? All in all, it was an inspirational session, I would say. Okay, and the more insights we got about publishing a book from a young author, right? You publish your first book at 20 years of age, and I guess you would be writing more and more. We wish you all the best, right? And thanks a lot for coming up. Also, it's the end of this session. Anything that you would like to convey to our audience? Any last lines, last words?
I just like to say that stay consistent, don't let go of your creative process, and keep writing. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great. It was really nice to have you. We are just ending up this session, and goodbye, everyone.